What's up, you guys? Welcome. This is a 20 to 40 podcast, a podcast about everything that can help you when you're growing on your journey between 20s, 30s, and 40s. We got myself, Sarad, and Steven. We're all fathers, all on our journey together. We got Sarad, who is a cop and works for the federal government. We got Steven, a lawyer, and then myself, a physical therapist, trader, investor. So we're giving you different perspectives on the things that have helped us get to where we're at and hopefully can help you on your journey. So let's get into number 7. Episode 7 is going to be about, if you feel left behind. I'm going to give you guys some average stats for, U.S. adults. Because sometimes people feel behind, whether it be in certain areas of life, whether, you're in a relationship or not, you're a homeowner or not, you maybe feel behind in your, your finances. Maybe you're in debt, maybe you're not. Maybe you do feel like you're good and have some investments for the future. So we're kind of going to go over some of those things because let's be real. Nowadays, with social media being a part of the journey, we are hyper aware of where other people are at in our circle. And that can be a good thing and a bad thing. Sometimes it motivates people and sometimes it makes people feel a certain way. So I'm going to give you guys some averages and then we'll go over some questions. So I did some research, and for income, this is what it came up with. The U.S. average for people 20 to 24, average annual income is about $36,000 a year or $3,000 a month. For 25 to 34, it's about $54,000 a year, $4,500 a month. And for 35 to 44 is $66,000 a year or $5,500 a month. And this is before taxes. So let's start off there. Like, what do you guys feel like these numbers are accurate? You got to remember, Sarad's in California, I'm in Florida, Steven's in North Dakota. So things might be different there. But what do you guys think about these numbers? And do you feel like you felt like, man, I'm ahead of the game, I'm behind the game? How did you fix that in this like income finances area of like how much money you earn? What do y'all feel about that?
Wow, that's crazy. I feel like that's really low. Like, that's my first thought is that's especially for people in their 20s to only make that much when we know the cost of living has what average rent is probably about $2,000
Yep.
a month, right? So you're telling me 20-year-olds can't even, no wonder they live at home with their parents because they can't afford an apartment. And if you can't afford an apartment, you definitely can't afford, all the other that's wow, man, groceries, gas, uh, you know, just internet, water, gas, all man, that's wild. Yeah, even for me in North Dakota, that's we got cheap apartments out here, but it's still tough. But wow, that
I
just
think
kind
what
of just
happens is,
that just kind of shocks me.
I think that is accurate. I think what happens is, because of social media, we see the, 3 to 5% of people that are in their 20s started a YouTube and now they're making 100,000 a month. Yeah, that person's out there. But the average is, if you look at these, like, that's why I think sometimes people take this comparison and they could feel behind, when if you look at the averages, most of the time you're not that behind, or you might be ahead, right? You might be making 4,000 a month in your 20s, early 20s, and thinking you're behind when you're actually ahead of the average at 3,000 a month. What do you think, Sarah?
It's all a scam. Quit your job, stop, buy Bitcoin, buy gold, because the rest of it's just a scam. So
That's it.
The,
Let me
you
ask.
know, the thing is though about the averages, right? Like just because you might be a little bit ahead of the average does not mean you're actually ahead, if that makes sense, right? Like just because you might be making a slightly over, 40 something thousand, maybe you're okay, say you're the 20 to 20-year-olds and you're making 45,000. Like while on an average of people you are better than people that are your age group. If you're making that much, you still don't have, and like you said, that's before taxes. So you're
Yep.
telling me people are only making about 4 grand a month? Like that's that's tough. That's tough. Like, and it's hard to get ahead, like so how do you save if you're barely scraping? You know what I mean? If you're barely getting your monthly bills, and no wonder why, like what they say 60% of Americans right now are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
That goes hand in hand with what you're making, right? Like if you only have enough to just get the bare necessities that I listed, even though you might be getting you might be making a little, you're still not feeling any better about it because you're not able to save, you're not able to invest, you're not able to buy or do stuff. So man, that's tough. That's
Well,
tough.
I think,
If you,
go
well,
ahead,
I was gonna
Sarah.
say, if you're making, because I know we had this conversation similarly before. If you're making, let's say, $30,000, to be honest, where you live probably isn't that important. And so if you're talking about making that in California, my advice to you would be move out of California or move to the areas of California where that type of income can go a little bit longer. The frugal life, the stuff that I've been posting with the AI about not spending your money on all those non-necessities, the alcohol, the new clothes, the new shoes. I just see a path forward. And to be honest, Aubrey, you touched on it multiple times. You work a 9 to 5. To be honest, what are you doing from 5 to 10? If you're 23, instead of 5 to 10, meeting up with your peoples and getting food and spending money, save that money, get another job. It doesn't last forever. I still have multiple jobs, but ultimately I went from like 7 different jobs of bouncing around San Diego trying to keep money coming in. I got to find that picture. I'm gonna post it where I had my Domino's paycheck, my nightclub paycheck, my full-time paycheck, my substitute teaching paycheck, and they were all kind of small, but it added up to a lot. But obviously, I don't need to work 5 jobs anymore because I put in time with my full-time job and worked my way up. So there is a path forward. When I hear those numbers, I don't get too caught up in like, oh my God. I'm like, dude, there's a way forward. It might not be in the city you're in, though. It might not be in the lifestyle you want, but there's a way for 30,000 is still a lot of money if you know what you're doing with it and you're asking for help and being smart. Again, roommates, couches, sacrifices, man. So it's shitty, but there's definitely a way forward from that.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing to remember is like who you compare yourself to can make you feel terrible. They say comparison is the thief of joy. So like I think what ends up happening a lot of time, I've been affected by it, is like you see this, you got to remember social media is there to make money. So they're going to show the most eye-catching things because they want your eyeballs on it to sell you more views, to sell it to advertisers. You got to understand the game, right? So if that's the game, then the 2 to 5% of people that are making, let's say in their early 20s, $100,000 looks so abundant because you see the same 5 people on Instagram so many times, and that's compared to the 5 friends you have. So you're like 5 and 5, but it's really not the average. So that's one thing to understand is like you gotta be an understanding of your comparison game. Like who are you comparing yourself to, right? And the thing is with income, the goal is it is for it to grow, right? But you've also got to understand, like Sarah said, 3,000 is a lot of money if you make it stretch, right? If your rent is 2,000, like a lot of people are trying to rush into their own place to have to go work more to pay for the place that they're never going to be at now. You should have 3 to 4 roommates, right? There's no need to rush into your own spot. So when you got rent at $600, now $3,000 looks a lot more, right? So I think the biggest thing to understand is like who are you comparing yourself to in this finances game? Because you might be in your 30s like, man, I'm making $75,000 a year, but it doesn't seem like a lot because everybody that you seem to look up to is saying they made 6 figures since they were 18. Well, if we look at the 25 to 34 range, the average is $4,500 a month, 54,000. So you're still 50% above the game, right? Not that we're going to stay there, but kind of give yourself that reality check rather than that social media check. Or because you never know. A lot of these people on social media are making $10,000 a month, but they're spending $11,000 a month. So it looks like they got a lot, but they're actually in debt or barely making it. They have no savings, no investment. They're not setting up their kids for going to school, right? And you may be. So you're like, I don't get it. Well, they're spending different than you, right? All right, let's go to the next fact because some people might be like, yo, I thought I'd be married by now or I have a relationship. So I looked up the average age or the median age for first marriage. For men is about 30 years old, 30.2 years old, and women is 28.6 years old, right? So what do you guys think about like some people are single into their 30s, sometimes their 40s. Sometimes people get married super early, right? In their early 20s. We know both of them, right? How old were you guys when you got married? And what do you think that did for you? Like, do you ever, like any of your people maybe that aren't married, what do you think is the differences in their journey versus ours? And what advice would you give to some people that maybe not married, that think they should be married, or maybe that got married early that maybe thought that was a mistake? What do y'all think?
I got married. How old was I when I got married? I think I was like 20, 22 or 23 when I
In
got
the
married.
military, right? You got married in the military.
Yeah, I got married when I was in the Air Force, and obviously, looking back, I got married too young. You know what I mean? I wasn't, the thing about it is, I think a lot of it has to do with, if I could have waited to do it later, I probably would have, right? To have that time in the beginning to just, find out who I was, what I wanted, and all that. Because when you're 20, you don't really, you think and some people do. That's not saying that some people don't find that and can't. But I just know for a lot of people, and you don't know what you want to do really in your 20s. Some people come out super focused, and that's cool, but I wasn't. That's the reason why I joined the military, because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I wanted some time to figure that out and do that. Um, and also getting your finances right. How much of that is, a lot of people, we just heard the numbers on it. And how do you think you can get married? And if your goal is when you get married is to have kids and then have a family and stuff, even if you have dual income at the averages and you're getting married around that time, it's like what, 80,000, 90,000 combined to try to do stuff. And that's not even including, are you guys going to school? Who has debt, right? Like when you come into when it is time to get married, you got to have those financial conversations with your significant other, just to see, hey, what are what are we coming in? What are we starting at? Like, do you have savings? How much debt do you have? What are your goals? Like, what are we trying to do? What are we working towards? And I would say, uh, my wife Amy now, you know what I'm saying? She really helped me focus on, getting rid of my debt, because she would always pay for stuff in cash. Like, she didn't do the debt thing. Like, she had a credit card to build up her credit score and stuff, but she was just, if she didn't have it, she wasn't just going out and getting it. And that is what really shaped me to start, hey, let me go buy this, let me go buy that, not thinking money like is very like serious to a point where you're just like, it comes and it goes type thing, to like, okay, I really need to, get my debt under control. I want to get rid of, she was like, before we get married, you gotta get rid of all your credit card debt. And so I was like, all right, cool. So get rid of that. You get rid of all this debt and stuff. And then you're able to then start saving with that person and building with that person. And you start to see it start to come to fruition. It takes a while, right? Like, it doesn't happen overnight, but to see the progress of, hey, this is where we're working at, and being on that same page with them about finances and about what you're building towards. Because I think a lot of things, a lot of times, sometimes you build in different directions, and then that makes you build apart. And then that is a reason for, what happens. Because as the attorney here, right, we all know divorce, on the other hand, right, if it doesn't work out, right, each state's different, but you got to split it up. If you own a house, you know what I'm saying? Either you're going to pay out the other person so you can have the house, or you got to sell your house and then you take half after whatever's left over that you owe to the bank. And that's things that, why no one goes into a marriage thinking about divorce. You also have to have your eyes open to be like, hey, what am I getting into? Because it is a contract, right? And if you don't have a prenup, right? I do not have a prenup. So if you don't have a prenup, everything in that marriage, right, is kind of marital property. Obviously, there's going to be some debates over that in court, but so then you have to think everything you're building, you're going to have to break down and separate and do all that. And if you have kids, how child support and all that stuff. So it's very important to be on the same page and building together and trying to find that, to make sure that you stay on the same page, because the downfall is always harder than the come up.
Yeah.
I think I was 30, 35. Was that 35? Yeah, I was 35 when I got married. I kind of felt like I was behind the curve. That's pretty old. But at the same time, I didn't want to rush into some bullshit ass relationship just to do it. I had saw a lot of people around me breaking up and divorcing, and kids are in the mix. I personally was like, if it's in the cards for me, I mean, we got together when I was 30, but up until 30, yeah, man, it was kind of lonely. But I was like, I'm never gonna force the issue. Um, so for me, I know a lot of people think that's better, I've seen successful 20-year-olds get married. I've seen successful people like myself in the late 30s find their spouse. Unlike Steven, I put my whole wedding, it was like $30,000. I put the whole thing on credit cards. So again, I just whatever, man. It's not true in the sense that I say it, but it's true in the sense that at the time, I always say money grows on trees. Like it's paper, it's not real. So I never really get too caught up in the moment of money, and then it catches up to you later. But it's funny. He said, being debt free before he got married. Like I was literally Amazoning and Etsy the whole wedding. Like I put the whole thing together. But yeah, I think we're more successful now since we were both older, as opposed to meeting out of high school or meeting after college. I was pretty well established. My wife is 6 years younger, but I kind of dragged her along with that establishment of life a little bit. I had my own everything, so I was just like, "Hey, come live with me, and let's go do this." And yeah, I mean, what 11 years later, 5 years of marriage, and we're good. So. I mean, I'll get her opinion on that later, but I'm good. So
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, for me, I had a serious relationship when I was in my young 20s, and then I was single for about 6 years. And I think, sometimes people do rush into it, not wanting to be alone. And I could definitely, feel that. There was times I felt really alone. But I think one of the things to be okay with is like understanding that there is going to be times alone, whether you like it or not. Sometimes it comes on the front end or the back end because you got to enjoy yourself. And that's not something to be scared of. Sometimes it can be a little bit different than what you're used to because in high school and school, we always have a lot of friends around. Then after school, it kind of changes a little bit because you got work and, then everybody's kind of busy. But I think one of the biggest things to understand for anybody that's on that journey, I think it's more important that you like to spend time together than, a lot of the other things we're told in the culture is important, maybe like looks and attraction, which is important, but it's not the only thing. So I think really understanding that, because sometimes I feel like people are like, yo, where's my person? Where's my, forever soulmate? And I think it's also more important is like, who's your companion? Who's somebody that you want to go through this life with, right? Because, you know, somebody you might be super attracted to that you might not want to be kicking it all the time because your companionship levels just really aren't there. You guys aren't really into the same thing. Like maybe you've experienced this where you've hung out with somebody and you were kind of like over hanging out at that time, right? You might have been super attracted to them, but you didn't want to necessarily spend a lot of time together. And there could be other people that you love spending time together and you are attracted, but maybe it's not the craziest attraction you ever had, but it's there and you just like being around them because you guys feel comfortable around each other. You're interested in the same things. You don't have to force the conversation, right? And I think that's one of the things to understand is like in a marriage is really about your companionship and finding somebody you want to go through this journey with. That's really going to be like not only your lover, but your friend. Both of those are equally important, if not the friendship being more important. So I think that's one thing to understand is sometimes you're going to find that in your 20s and sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're going to find that in your 30s. Sometimes you're going to find that in your 40s, and that's okay. But it's something I don't think you can force. So just to give you guys those averages on that, I think that helps because sometimes people are like 27, 28, they're like, yo, I'm not married. I'm like, bro, like there ain't no need to rush. I think like yourself, Sarad, I got married, what at like 30? No, 31, right? So right in the 30 range where the average for males was 30.2. Okay. So that point. Next one, let's go on to, and we kind of touched on this before, but I want to bring it back because I think this is a big one that people get hung up on is the average or median age for first-time home buyers. Sarad, you brought it up, which he has a background in real estate. Is it used to be 35 in 2023, and now it's shot up to 38 years old, so hovering around that 40. And this is the highest level the first-time home buyers now only account for 24% of purchases of homes, which is the lowest level since 1981. And what that means is that the number of first-time home buyers is the lowest it's been in 40 years. And it's the latest it's been, I think might be on record. So you're seeing some challenges of getting in. And I think that should tell people about what it is to go into a home. You know, is it important? We all think so. We're all homeowners, but also understanding that it's not something to rush, force, or feel a certain way about. What are your guys' takes on that? And what do you guys think are some things that helped you guys be okay with when you did buy? What age were you when you bought? What helped you get set up for that? And how did you feel about that?
You know, I was 39, so because I just bought my first house, right? Like I just bought my first house, and you know, I think all your numbers kind of tell you exactly the story, right? Like a single person making an average of $50,000, you know, how much of that can you really, you know, a mortgage right now with what interest rate? My interest rate was 5.5%. So I think I pay like 3,600 a month for this house, right? Like you're not doing that at an average salary, right? And then if you got two average salaries, right? Now you got your partner, and you guys are doing this, and what kind of house you're going to live in, especially if it's, you know, you plan for kids, right? You got to buy a house, and you got to think of, you know, looking at all that. But yeah, it's hard for a first time home buyer. If that's what the averages are, then it just makes sense with interest rates as high as it is, and you know, there's no the abundance of supply is it's now because people are trying to sell, but the problem is if there's no one to buy, then it's just going to be oversaturated and it drops housing prices, right? So you just really have what I did was just, and I didn't say wait, like I just waited for my house. Like I have been looking to buy a house probably for like 4 years, right? And it's just trying to find the house that makes sense for what you need and what you like to do. You know, me, my wife, and my daughters, we like staying at the house. We love being able to watch movies. We love playing in the backyard and all the stuff. So the house for us is like our centerpiece. This is where we like to hang out and do our stuff and have our fun. So, but if I was more of a person that like to travel, maybe I don't get a big of a house, right? Or you try to think you really got to have what your lifestyle is. And I think by being later in life, and once you do have that family, because you can always plan for a family and plan for that future, but until you're in it and you know what your lifestyle is like with the kids and the wife and everything, it's hard to see what kind of house you want. Because if you do like, I know families that love to travel, go everywhere. You guys love to travel. I know Aubrey loves to go places, you know, just being able. So how does that factor into what you want to do too when you try to get a mortgage and you're thinking about monthly expenses, but you also like to travel? And I think it all comes hand in hand. You got to make more. You got to find a solid, you know, partner to do this with and build with. But then you also have to be smart in getting in an investment, because knowing that it is going to take you longer, when you get that house, you got to really make sure you get that house, right? That you're not sitting there trying to fumble and flip through stuff when you got retirement in about 25 years, right? So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna combine the two, and I'm like just not a sky is falling type person anymore. Um, I really don't think home ownership is that hard. I think a lot of people are looking for that mansion. I think they're looking for that house with the pool in the back and all these other unrealistic things. Like I said, there are literally options where you can buy a house with $0 in your bank account. You don't need a down payment, and you don't need closing costs. You don't need any of that stuff. There are ways for entry, but like I said in the previous episode, maybe it's not going to be the home you want. It might be the home you need. Kind of taking what Steven just said, because you need a home, and paying rent, you're just literally throwing away your paycheck. Um, Kind of bouncing back to the relationship, I kind of feel the same way. I just see people forcing so much shit, and it's kind of, as I'm listening to you guys, I'm like in my head getting frustrated because I'm very convinced about these things. I just see people make dumbass decisions. You know what I mean? Like you can't tell me when your coworker, when you meet their boyfriend or their husband, like I know that shit ain't gonna work, and then 3 years later it's like, oh, it didn't work. It's like, yeah, no shit. She was garbage or he was trash. How did you not see it? People got to get out of their own way, and that's why it's like, yeah, if you want a home, and I'm only using California, but again, we're the most expensive. So if I can keep this mentality in California, I know if you're in Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Idaho, or wherever, you should be fine. That small income that you have, if you make the right decisions and make the right choices, you'll be fine. If you're not chasing the social media house or the real Hollywood, Orange County mansion next to the water, there is a entryway to relationships and housing and good jobs and good income. But people really got to get out of their own way, because I don't want to do that job. Because do y'all know how much managers at McDonald's make? Do y'all know how much that manager who's running that Home Depot is making? Yeah,
Yep.
he's in the six figures at a damn Home Depot. All he does is do the schedule and make sure that, you know what I mean? So it's like people, but that's not a flashy job. Nobody wants to walk around at a dinner party and say, oh, yeah, I'm a manager at the Home Depot, because they think, you know what I mean? So people just got to get out of their own way. Everything we're talking about right now, if you combine the three, if people were to just actually look at the reality of it and not the social media reality or what TV shows or movies show you, I think people would be way better off.
Yeah, I like that. Definitely. Like people don't understand that, the dude, I think Chipotle starts people at like 17, 18, probably more in LA or California, but with benefits, tuition reimbursement. I'm like, damn, like,
And because people quit so much at these jobs, you can actually get to assistant manager
yeah,
or whatever. I mean, by the time you're like 21, if you start at 18, 19, you could be a manager by 20, 21. Like
yep.
but it's not flashy.
No. Well, if you want to touch on a few of those programs because you know about them, if you can touch on the multi-unit Fannie Mae, because I think that's one of the best things. But also, I think you were talking about the USDA loan, VA loan. If you want to touch on like somebody's struggling, or they're like, I don't know how to come out with this down payment. What is the down payment? Usually, if you can go over that, if they were to do a down payment, the 3.5%, and if they are looking to not, what are some programs for that?
Yeah, the reason is because rural areas don't have a lot of people who want to live there. They live on wells, and there's cow manure in the air. So, they basically the government backs the loan to say, if you want to move to this rural area, you don't have to do a down payment. So that's gone. The houses are going to be cheaper. So, the payment will probably be a lot less. What was I going to say? Oh, modular homes. I know I brought them up before. It's a nice start. A lot of people don't talk about those. Even in California, I mean, a big one still in the fours, but where I'm at in kind of country white, we're in between LA and San Diego, they're going in the twos. You can get one for like 260. So, you do the math on that. With no down payment, you got a $40,000 job, you've been saving, right? You still want to save and have that budget to manage your house. It's a lot that comes with owning your own home. You have to fix everything if it breaks yourself. And then the closing costs. The reason I say you don't have to pay closing costs in certain markets is because like right now there's like, oh man, I forgot the number, but there's way more homes on the market than buyers now. I mean, I don't know if you want to call it a buyer's market just because people still want $1 zillion for their shitty ass 1,200 square feet house. But the fact of the matter is, if you can get a good deal on the house, you can throw in the closing cost. The closing cost is at the end of the deal. So that this is just money on the table. Who pays it? Nobody cares. So you just go to the seller and say, hey, instead of fixing the refrigerator and a washer and dryer, can you pay the $22,000 in closing costs? And that's something that you could put on the table. So, and if they say no, go find a house where a seller's willing to do it, because they bought their house in 2020 and now they're up 400 grand. So 22 is nothing to, all right, 22. So I take home 380 instead of 400. They'll pay your closing costs. That's going to take time to find, but there's an entry point. You don't have to throw your hands up and say, well, I guess I can't do it. Yes, you can. It's just going to take time and effort and a good real estate agent and, figure it out. But you got to talk to somebody, a professional.
Yep, for sure. And then I think also another thing to think about, which I didn't really learn a lot about till later, is multifamily, right? Fannie Mae has a program where you can get 5% down on up to 4 units, up to I think 1.3 million, right? So say you're like in your 20s and you're like, you know what? I don't have the family yet. We don't need the 3 to 4 bedroom. Why not get a 2, 3, or 4 unit and live in there for a year? And then have that as an asset later. So your current daily or monthly payment is going towards something. And when you move out, you can now have something with that door that you used to live in cash flowing. I
And are
think
you talking about a business partner, like moving it? Are you saying a person with a 45,000 could do that, or would you have to say, hey, Aubrey, you make 45, I make 45. Let's try
I think
this.
a person with 45 could do it, right?
Okay.
If they had a roommate in their unit, because usually each unit is still at least 2 bedrooms. And they're
That's
not.
just important to point out. I wanted to say most of the time you may want to work with a close friend a close relative. Obviously, you start mixing business and family and friends. But I wanted to point that out. That is a really smart way, because now that's less stress on you
Yep.
to worry about so much finances. That's a great deal with the multi-unit, and if you can get somebody to go in on it with you, now you're really talking about taking advantage of an opportunity at a young age.
And even talking to your parents, if your parents are looking for some kind of investment, you can say, hey, let's go in on it. Let's get a 3-unit. You take care of 1 unit. I live in 1 unit and I'll rent out the other unit. So we each got 1 unit to take care of. I'm sure your parents sometimes will want to take advantage of that to help you out and build another investment. And then everybody doesn't have to have so much capital, right? Let's say it's $1 million 3-unit, right? 5% down is only $50,000. That sounds like a lot. But now let's say the mortgage is $4,500. Each unit, being a 2-bedroom unit, is only $1,500. So now you have a $1,500 mortgage, but you're getting $3,000 from these other two. So your mortgage on a home with 2 bedrooms, you can still have a roommate, charge them $1,000. So imagine you got a 2-bedroom, you got a roommate, charge them $1,000. Now you only have to pay $500 yourself. And you've got a $1 million asset appreciating that you can move out later when you want to get your house with your family and now have $1,700 per unit coming in. Now you're cash flowing, $600 with the appreciation asset going up in value. And multifamilies are very attractive to investors, so they usually sell pretty well, right? That's a different way of looking at it. Like, I think one thing that holds people up, like y'all said, is they're looking for their forever home in their 20s. You don't even usually got 3 kids yet, right? And you don't got the earning power to get the $1 million house. So you just wait, where there's things you can do in between. The modular homes, or like a fabricated home, right? You've got multifamily, or you can get the 3-bedroom and rent out the other rooms, right? You don't need to have 2 rooms sitting there with a guest bed so your homies can come over once every 6 months and party with you. That's another thing. There be just rooms sitting there. I got to have it for when the homie want to crash. Put them on the couch, homie. Get you a little air mattress from Walmart. Put them on the air mattress. They're going to be good. So I think that's really important. And then the last thing I'm going to touch on as we're finishing out the episode is average net worth. So this, I think, does include home equity and investments, right? Average net worth. Under 35 years old is 39,000. 35 to 44 is 135,600. 45 to 54 is 247,200, so about $250,000. 55 to 64 is $364,500. And then 65 to 74 is 409,000. So for people that might feel like, yo, I don't have the investments, or maybe they're a negative because they got debt, right? What do you think are some things they can do in their mindset, their habits, and also understanding they might be in their 30 years old thinking, man, I should have all this money, but the average is 39,000, right? Maybe they don't have a home and they're comparing themselves with people who have equity already. So what do you guys think about those numbers? And what do you guys think about people can do if they are feeling behind in that net worth, investments, or kind of wealth, what they can do about that?
It's kind of like what you said earlier, right? Like, about comparisons. I never, when I was younger, I used to compare myself to people all the time. Like, oh, I'm not here because look at this person. And and as I grown older, I've learned to let people inspire me to do better, but understanding that I am my own person, living my own life here, and I can just, what I do is what I can do, and I can only control what I can do. And I think the biggest thing people can really do to just get ahead is really just lock in with yourself. Like, find out who you are and just grind. And there's so many different avenues now in 2025 that people can go to get an income. Like, the traditional way of what we had to do, of like starting at the bottom in the mailroom and then working your way up, or you're on the fries and you become a manager at McDonald's. Like, there's other avenues, right? With all the technology, all the social media, all the stuff that's going on, you just got to find out what you are really passionate about and what you really love to do so that every day when you do it, it doesn't feel like a job to you. You actually enjoy doing it. I enjoy being an attorney. I enjoy going to work every day. While I might not love my work every single day, which you're not, like just at the end of the day, I still enjoy helping people. And that's what I do. So stop comparing yourself to anybody and just know you're your own person. And doesn't matter if you when you finish, when you start the race, whatever, just run your own race. It's okay. Because at the end of the day, it's all that as long as you finish, that's all that matters. And failure is part of the path to success. Because in order to be successful, you have to know what it is to fail. You have to know what it is to be at the rock bottom and what it takes to grind to get back up to the top and go past that, right? Because every time you fail, you should be trying to go higher to the next time because you have to. And so many people will just stop because they quit. And you can't finish life. You can't be successful in life with a quitter's attitude. That's just what they teach you when you're young, and that's what I've learned all the way till now. If you quit, you're done. No one's going to help quitters. No one cares about quitters. That's just the fact of life. So just be on your grind, do your own thing, and worry about what makes you happy, and do that. And if people aren't rocking with you, or they don't like it, or they're hating on you, or whatever, leave them. Not everyone. Like Nipsey said, my circle got smaller. Not everybody can go. That's how it is. Not everyone that you were with in high school is going to go with you to where you're at right now. Some people do. That's the circle. And those are the people that have helped you get there. So just keep finding people that are going to elevate you. Leave those people that aren't going to elevate you and just worry about yourself, grind on yourself. And people's opinions are opinions. All that matters is your facts of what you do in your life.
Yep. That was
Yeah,
dope.
the clothes, like we all the money I spent wasted, hotels, the clothes, the alcohol, the cars. I mean, the cars were nice, but it's a waste, man. So, if somebody was medium age, 23, just finished college, what I would tell my old self, I'd be like, look, man, just live within your means. It's not like you didn't get a good job. I literally had a good job and I was still substitute teaching and tutoring and I was getting an extra 1,000. Then I went to Domino's and was delivering pizza and still getting another extra 700. But for some reason that wasn't enough. And I had to, if I'm making that, let's just say it was 4,000 a month, I was spending six. And I'm swiping here and swiping there and oh, $20 a month for the credit card, cool. Not knowing again, it's going to catch up to you later. So just stay within your means. There's no reason that your net worth shouldn't slowly go up. It's I think Stephen, you said a little while ago, Amy was like, hey, I'll use the credit card to build my credit, but cash is king. So just use the cash. If you got a decent job, just use that money, be smart with it, and let it build. I think net worth's pretty important. Things I didn't even think about until recently. I didn't really care. Um, debt or income and all that. It was all just numbers to me. But then I really started looking at it and I'm like, man, something's wrong here. And what I found out was like, bro, you're spending way too much. You're not saving. You're not taking this serious. But guess what? Now I'm taking it serious and we're going to fix these problems because like I said, the sky's not falling. Literally just have to stop eating out. Oh goodness. Like it's not hard. Just stop a lot of the bad habits you had. Eat the burgers at the house instead of at In-N-Out for $35 or whatever. But you should definitely be able to build a net worth if you stay within your means. If you have a good job, a good career that you started, I wouldn't worry about it if I was like in college and whatnot. But once you get out and you start working, take it serious, stay within your means, and don't try to get that flashy car. Nobody cares. Don't try to get that flashy belt. Your shirt's gonna cover it anyways. This dude like that.
I feel you. Good points, man. I'm gonna just leave us off with this for the people that are like, man, I feel like it's late. I'm behind. I found this thing that said, Henry Ford started Ford at 40 years old. And you gotta think this is back in the day when 40 was really feeling old.
Yeah, he's about to die like 5 years later.
Yeah, like cats wasn't living that long. Jerry Baldwin founded Starbucks at 42. Christian Dior founded her luxury brand at 41. Steve Carroll had his break in the 40-year-old virgin at 43, Steve Carroll. Robert Downey Jr. had Iron Man at 43. Stan Lee didn't start writing his famous Marvel comics until 43, the starter of Marvel. Sam Walton founded Walmart at 44. Martha Stewart launched her magazine, Martha Stewart Living, at 49. And this one's crazy. Morgan Freeman, the actor, first Hollywood role was at 52 years old. That's wild, bro.
Wait, what?
Morgan Freeman,
He was
first
52 in Shawshank?
Yeah.
Nah, that's
Dang,
looked
that's
52.
it though.
Nah.
That just dropped a nugget on these cats. So thanks for
Lean
being
on me. He was 50 something and lean
That's what
on.
I'm like, yo, hey,
Check
I
it.
don't mean
First
to fact check you,
Hollywood
bro,
role
but
was at 52.
What was
Nah.
his first Hollywood role?
I don't know. My fact checkers here are gonna find that out for y'all.
yeah, bro, not you. Yeah.
Check it. We go check it. But that was episode 7. If you're feeling left behind, how to get your mind right and get your grind right. Thanks for sharing, liking the podcast. You guys know we got the YouTube channel. We've got the Instagram up. We appreciate if you guys can like this, comment, share. Let us know what other topics you want us to hit on. We appreciate you guys from the 20 to 40 podcast, episode 7. Let's get it.